43rd gene key, breakthrough. Programming partner, 23rd gene key. Codon ring, the ring of destiny, 3443. Physiology, inner ear. Amino acid, asparagine. The 43rd shadow, deafness. Survival, service, surrender. There is a natural process built into the lives of human beings, and this process essentially has 3 stages: survival, service, and surrender. These 3 archetypal stages roughly represent the 3 levels or bands that form the spectrum of human consciousness upon which the 64 gene keys are built. At the shadow level, you are always operating out of your genetic survival mode, which is keyed into the frequency of fear. At the gift level, you enter into service mode, in which a transformation has taken place inside that enables you to operate more efficiently within the whole. The final stage involves a complete transformation as your individuated awareness is surrendered and your DNA is finally allowed to function with absolutely no interference from within. What is common to each of these 3 stages is the transformation process itself. At each level, it occurs in sudden leaps. We tend to move through long periods in which it appears that very little about us alters, and then suddenly, every now and again, an experience or event occurs which utterly changes our lives. These transformational events can never be predicted in life, neither can the effects they have on us. As the ancient texts have always attested, the only certainty in life is change. At the shadow level of awareness, change is all you really want, but true change is denied you. It is because you want to change that you cannot change. The 43rd shadow of deafness is what prevents you from hearing this simplest of truths. In this sense, deafness is the inability to hear what is going on inside you. Because the shadow frequency is a field of fear created by human beings, you cannot hear the truth inside you due to the white noise generated by the subacoustic aura of humanity. The 43rd gene key is about acoustics and inner listening. The gift of insight requires a calm inner environment, and yet the lower frequencies are so deafening that it is rare to find a human being with a clear, still aura. One clear insight from a higher frequency can completely change your life, because true insight is a mutation within the structure of your DNA. The 43rd shadow blocks such inner events by tuning you into the lower planetary frequencies of pure noise. The 43rd gene key is about surprises, and it will not reveal its secrets to a taut mind. The pulse of life follows a deeply focused rhythm that periodically undergoes unexpected fluctuations. This is true from the movements of the galaxies right down to the minute workings of the subatomic world. We can see these rhythms everywhere, but if we look long enough, we can also see the anomalies that break the pattern. This is why science, for example, has been unable to explain everything in the universe, because the goalposts keep changing. The human mind is unhappy living in such an uncertain universe. As an aspect of the universe, our very bodies are subject to these same fluctuations, and we call them our moods. At the shadow frequency, individuals do not want to accept that they cannot control their inner workings and their moods. We spend our entire lives trying to create the illusion of security and stability. Much of the world still exists at a level of subsistence that cannot afford to be concerned about how they feel. They are simply engaged in survival. But for those societies that have pulled free from the primal survival frequency, fear still persists. As the saying goes, we move from being warriors to being warriors. The 43rd gene key is about the progression of consciousness in form, and this progression is measured through a heightening of efficiency in the functioning of that form. In wealthy societies, for example, it is technological breakthroughs that allow a greater level of efficiency and autonomy throughout the society. Eventually, these breakthroughs will doubtless spread to the whole of human civilization, but even that will not make us happier. In many respects, once you have more individual freedom, you realize the depth of your own dissatisfaction. This realization constitutes a vital stage in human evolution. The fear that governs the shadow frequency specifically attaches itself to the way your body feels. This sets up a great dilemma inside you because it makes you search for happiness. What we humans call happiness is simply one aspect of our natural chemistry. Sometimes you experience it, and sometimes you don't. A great deal of the time we do not feel happy because we spend so much of our time trying to create happiness in the future. Modern society is locked into trying to create external security. We assume that happiness comes with financial or marital security, whereas in fact it is not dependent on anything external. The true purpose of the 43rd shadow at a collective genetic level is to create a more efficient society so that we can arrive at the breakthrough that nothing external can buy us happiness. Our deafness to our fear eventually leads us to confront it. This is the power of the shadow frequency as a driving force of evolution. This 43rd shadow impacts you on a purely individual level. You are really only interested in taking away your own uncertainty, so you try to find the perfect relationship, and you try to make enough money so that you can relax, or you try to change your body or your lifestyle so that you will feel good about yourself. Modern society is built upon the individual's desperation to escape the way we feel. In truth, we are not really deaf at all. We are simply too busy worrying to hear, or we are too busy knowing what we are doing to listen. Our dilemma is that we try to escape the loop of not feeling fulfilled, and in doing so, we in fact ensure that we stay in that loop. Everything you do to try to reach fulfillment actually has the effect of making your life more complicated. The programming partner here is the 23rd shadow of complexity. Your hearing is really fine. It is simply drowned out by the internal noise inside your head. In our modern world, everyone is expected to know what to do in life, as though everything were absolutely sure. The truth is that nothing is sure, and deep down inside, no matter how you adjust or improve your lifestyle, your body always comes back and reminds you of this. The original Chinese name for this 43rd hexagram is breakthrough, and as we have seen, life is about sporadic breakthroughs. As you rise up in the planetary hierarchy, you realize that no amount of individual freedom or wealth can fill the void inside you. Only when you finally realize this does the first great breakthrough come. This breakthrough occurs when you begin to face the fact that you simply don't feel comfortable in the world. No individual can really feel comfortable in society because where society tends to be consistent and relatively stable, the individual is neither of these things. To precipitate this great breakthrough in awareness, you have to look honestly into one of your deepest fears, the fear of being rejected by society. Inside every individual is a pulsing rebellious spirit, and it is this spirit that finally begins to awaken when you realize how deafened you have been by that which society, culture, and even history expects of you. Repressive nature, worried. The two aspects of the 43rd shadow both concern noise. This repressed aspect is rooted in internal noise, or the human tendency to worry. Worry is based upon the mind going round and round in circles, trying to figure out how to escape worry. It pressures us into all kinds of activities that we hope will bring an end to the worry. Of course, once one activity has finished, another worry immediately leaps into the resulting space, thereby perpetuating a very uncomfortable mental loop. All worry is based upon fear. In the case of the repressed 43rd shadow, it is the fear of not fitting into the world and of being an outcast. In essence, this is a pure fear, but when repressed, it becomes a monster that drives us again and again out into the world to try to end the feeling through some kind of external achievement. Only when we confront such fear directly do we finally realize how much creative power lies in our individuality. Reactive nature, noisy. The reactive aspect of this shadow manifests as external noise, or the human tendency to simply keep talking. These are people who do not talk in order to communicate something. They are not in the least bit interested in what anyone else has to say. They are unconsciously trying to deafen themselves from hearing the way they really feel, which is miserable. Added to this, these people have a deep need to be accepted and understood by others, and because they are not listening to themselves, they often speak inappropriately or at the wrong time. Thus, instead of being accepted, such people generally feel misunderstood and are often outright rejected. This dynamic may further increase their fixed viewpoint and make them even more paranoid and angry at being so misunderstood. When taken to the extreme, such natures can end up feeling so ostracized that they take out their anger either on those closest to them or on society in general. The 43rd gift, insight, the creative rebel. It is through the 43rd gift that the spirit of the rebel is born. Every human being is born to be a rebel in the sense of filling a space in the world that cannot be duplicated by another. The wonder of the human being is this unpredictable, spontaneous, liquid genius. As individuals, when we awaken to our true creative potential, that which is hidden in our DNA begins to rise up and pull us out of the survival frequency. It is then that we enter into the stage of service. When we think of this word service, we may have a preconceived notion of what it entails. However, service to the whole is not the same as service to society. The service that the 43rd gift brings into the world is rebellion. Without the creative passion and insight of the individual, life would not only be dull, but would probably cease altogether. Without the spontaneous, the unexpected, the dangerous, we simply could not evolve. A society caught in the shadow frequency does not like the rebellious spirit at all. Such people cannot be controlled and appear to threaten the very security that human beings have spent so much time and energy trying to create. The nature of the individual human spirit is one of romance. We humans are all really poets, pirates, and lovers. We refuse to be categorized or stereotyped into a fixed role in society. It is therefore hugely ironic that even though every single human being alive is potentially just such a hero or heroine, we have created a world in which such people are labeled outsiders. We worship these heroes, but we do so from a safe distance. Therefore, the creative contribution of the awakened individual does not serve our society directly. It serves other individuals by inspiring them to take the same risk and discover the latent genius that lies inside them. Such service ultimately comes back to the whole because it constantly shakes up the system, and all systems need regular shaking, otherwise they become frozen and stagnant. At the gift level of frequency, the very handicap of the lower frequency, deafness, actually becomes a great ally. Instead of not listening to yourself, you now stop listening to the status quo. This is the first law of the rebel, to trust in your inner voice no matter what the consequences. This is the true meaning of the gift of insight. Such insight does not make the rebel a destructive force. He or she is not a reactionary who takes out their frustration on the external or wastes time blaming and condemning others. That is the game of the shadow frequency. The rebel awakening through the 43rd gift is immensely creative. He or she simply cuts a new pathway without worrying about where it is going. This is the deafness of genius, to forget the future altogether and simply be the conduit for creative insight. True insight delights in simplicity, the 23rd gift, which in turn brings about efficiency. The 43rd gift reflects everything back into you. You cannot afford to trust any external source that claims wisdom or knowledge. It is not that you stop listening to such things, but that you stop being influenced by them. It is only when you trust your inner core that the breakthrough comes from deep within your cells, from the DNA itself. As this 43rd gift is rooted in the acoustic field, the insight is not seen but heard subacoustically, and it is experienced as a flood of knowing inside the cells of your body. The process of insight is a very transformational experience as it touches you right to your core. You cannot make it happen. The only way you can experience insight is unexpectedly, so you have to give up looking for it. It is rather like the process of writing a song or a piece of poetry. The more you try, the harder it becomes. It has to be allowed to happen in its own time and in its own way. Once it does happen, you experience greater inner freedom, because every insight opens you to wider and wider experiences of human awareness. In Japanese culture, one of the key words for insight is satori, which implies a sudden breakthrough from within. No teacher or system can lead you to the experience of satori, but these moments occur more frequently as you relax more deeply into your inner nature. As they become more frequent, a certain deep spirit of trust begins to pervade and suffuse your being, as though life's mystery were awakening directly inside you. You begin to realize that although you cannot create these breakthroughs, you can expand the environment in which they seem to occur. This environment is one of deep relaxedness and solitude. Such solitude does not mean you have to withdraw from the world, but that you use the same deafness from the shadow to filter out all but the essential and beautiful from your life. You will become a more contemplative being, and your gait through the world will become more sauntering than directed. In this way, your awareness turns inward without losing any of its worldliness, making you unique but integrated, profound, yet accessible. The 43rd gene key is bonded in your DNA to the 34th gene key. Together, this chemical coupling creates a codon ring called the Ring of Destiny. Human destiny is caught between the polarity of these two gene keys, with the 34th representing the human urge to evolve and become more, and the 43rd representing the divine urge to involve and dive down into the world of form. The secret of this codon ring is the secret of timing, and through the ages it has whispered a great truth into the ears of those whose insight is developed enough to hear it. Life is a mystery in which chance and love are dancing together. The more you allow love, the more chance appears to work in your favor. When you love totally, unconditionally, even chance is shown to be an illusion, and the underlying cosmic geometry or cosmometry is revealed behind all things. It is only then that your timing becomes perfect, and that which appears to be random is understood as an aspect of the holographic universe unfolding its myth through your life. Destiny is governed by the combination of human strength and insight. Only at the highest Siddhic level do you transcend the force of destiny altogether. The 43rd Siddhi, Epiphany, the Star and the Magi. We can see how evolution on our planet is moving us steadily toward a place of increased individual freedom. Our technological advances have made us so efficient that more and more people have time in their lives to actually ponder the meaning behind life. This stage in our evolution can only deepen, thus preparing our species for breakthroughs of a more spiritual nature as the gift of insight becomes commonplace in people's lives. As the human rebellious spirit comes alive, your DNA attunes to higher and more refined frequencies. This means that the age of individual truth will take over from the need for collective pseudo-truths based on insecurity. This work on the 64 gene keys is a prime example of the dawning of the coming age, since it describes each of the codes of consciousness but comes without specific instructions. Therefore, it cannot claim to hold any truth. The truth lies inside each of us. When it is seen, read, or heard, it may indeed trigger a process of recognition within your DNA. True insight only comes in this way when all outer instructions have been removed. As we learned at the beginning of this gene key, all human beings move through 3 natural stages of evolution: survival at the shadow level, service at the gift level, and finally surrender here at the level of the Siddhi. The 43rd Siddhi is that of Epiphany. It represents the final breakthrough of consciousness possible within a human being. Despite its obvious Christian heritage, the word epiphany is derived from a Greek word meaning inner manifestation. One of the meanings of epiphany has to do with the manifestation of a divine being, which is why it has become associated with the recognition of the baby Jesus's divine nature. The Siddhi of Epiphany is an inner surrendering or giving up that takes place in certain human beings. When it occurs, those human beings cease to identify with themselves and become manifestations of divine being. There is a great difference here between being a manifestation of a divine being and a manifestation of divine being. The epiphany is that there are no special exalted beings. It is the epiphany that consciousness is all there is. In many ways, the epiphany of the 43rd Siddhi would be a great disappointment if you could survive it to be disappointed. It is the sudden revelation from within that you have been wasting your time looking for a God, even a God inside yourself. Epiphany is expressed beautifully through the Buddha's enlightenment, when after so many years of searching and meditation, he just became so tired that he gave up. It was only at this moment of deep surrender that he experienced his sudden epiphany, that he was just an ordinary man searching for something that he already was. Even though you hear this and may sense the truth of it, you still can do nothing to hasten your own epiphany. It can only come unexpectedly. Everyone who experiences the Siddhi of Epiphany does so differently. The Buddha had to be disappointed, but other people have experienced it in many unique ways. There is a story about an Eskimo shaman named Uvavnuk who experienced her epiphany while having a pee beneath the stars one night. No one can ever know how, when, and to whom the epiphany will occur, and that is its wonderful mystery. Through its associated Christian symbolism, the epiphany is also connected to the recognition of Christ through the medium of the 3 magi and the giving of their gifts. This colorful story of the 3 wise men that came from the east and followed the star to Jesus' birth is pregnant with archetypal mystery. If one understands the legend of the Christian Epiphany as an inner mythic code, one will see that it contains a great hidden truth concerning humanity's final evolution. The 3 magi and their gifts can be interpreted as many different things because so many esoteric myths are founded upon the triple nature of divinity. What we see is a uniting of this triple nature around the figure of the Christ child, drawn together by a celestial force, the star. The star can be seen as an emblem of fate or the movement of the spheres that lies beyond our human grasp. The Magi and their gifts can be seen as 3 disparate aspects or levels of our self, drawn together and unified by the figure of the Christ. The 43rd Siddhi is special in another way, in that it is one of 7 gene keys that provides a portal for grace to move into the world of form. In the 22nd gene key, we learn about the mystical opening of the 7 sacred seals, specific codes in human DNA, whose primary purpose is to heal a vital and specific aspect of the human wound. The 43rd Siddhi represents the opening of the 4th seal, which releases the profound human fear of rejection and opens the hearts of all individuals. This Siddhi has a powerful destiny within the human genome to create mass breakthroughs across entire gene pools and thus open up the borders and boundaries that separate our communities and countries. Ultimately, the Epiphany is an explosion in the human heart, an openness and acceptance of others, and a divine spirit of friendliness that is at the core of all human beings. At an individual level, the 43rd Siddhi is and always must remain unique to each person in whom it appears. It allows you to see behind the workings of the universe and the human mind. It is the one breakthrough that you cannot anticipate or imagine because it brings an end to everything you think you know about your world. There is enormous laughter stored up in this Siddhi as the Epiphany lands you squarely in the middle of the greatest paradox of all time, that you are what you are and nothing can ever be added or taken away from your nature, regardless of your experiences. When the 43rd Siddhi manifests in the world, it often plays the fool in some deep, mystical way. These are people who know that nothing they do or say is of any importance or relevance whatsoever, so they simply act as they like and say what they like. As a consequence of all this, such deeply realized people inevitably break all the rules of how an enlightened being is supposed to behave. It is as though they are constantly sharing a private joke with themselves. With the 43rd Siddhi, the only thing you know is that you know absolutely nothing. This knowing is so delightful to you that you will simply never be able to contain the wonder and beauty of it. You have become deaf to everything but the divine.